And for more on this, Floyd Wisner, aviation attorney with the Wisner Law Firm, joins me from Chicago. Good to see you. Let me first just ask you, what was your initial reaction as a lawyer when you heard about this disaster?
Just amazement, Phil. I mean, have you ever heard of a more star-crossed airline than Malaysia Air? Just terrible.
So that said, that may potentially be their defense as well, right? Because it could be just bad luck, and therefore when we talk about lawsuits, some people say, well, they have to be wrong in order to pay out money, but that's not necessarily the case. So what's the process in asking the airline for money in this particular case? Does the airline offer money? Is there a group that represents the passengers and its families?
There will be a group representing the passengers and their families. Malaysia Air is responsible. We'll have to pay compensation. Under the Montreal Convention, which governs their liability for this international transportation by air, Malaysia Air is going to be responsible for unlimited damages in addition to the 100,000 special drawing rights you mentioned, unless Malaysia Air, not the plaintiffs, but Malaysia Air can prove that it took all necessary measures to avoid this loss. I don't think it can prove that because of the route it took for this aircraft. And because of that, it's going to be responsible for all compensatory damages.
Yeah, so okay, that brings up the point which I was going to ask you. If I'm crossing a busy street and there's a danger of getting hit by a vehicle, but I make it across the street and I'm safe and nothing happened, but the person behind me also ran across the street, but they got hit by the vehicle because it was a dangerous route. Now, one could argue that there's no way for Malaysian Airlines to foresee this, but the passengers, they're going to argue that, of course, Malaysian Airlines shouldn't have gone on this route. It's a well-known war route. They deviated from the route very slightly, even though other planes made it safely. Does that clear Malaysian Airlines?
Yeah, no, it does not. And it's because this isn't your usual auto accident liability law. The Montreal Convention is something very specific governing international transportation by air. It changes the law. It changes the law as we know it. It places the burden on the airline, and it holds them fully responsible, even if they're only partly responsible.
All right. What about this war stuff? A lot of people have been talking about the war thing. In the event of war, there's a lot of clauses that come into play. Explain how that impacts this particular case.
Yes, there's often clauses in insurance contracts called war risk exclusion clauses. That's not going to help Malaysia Air in this case because of the Montreal Convention and its virtually absolute liability. Malaysia Air chose to conduct this route over a knowingly dangerous territory. Now, you are correct, Phil, that many other airlines did too. They got lucky. They didn't get hit. Malaysia Air did. I think that if we look at it and we said, would you or I want to be on a jet going over that territory? No way. And Malaysia Air is responsible.
If it is to be found out, of course, right now the assumption is that Russia potentially helped these militants use this anti-aircraft missile. If it's proven later and there's evidence to substantiate that, could Malaysian Airlines, I guess, have a case either against Russia or the militants or any other party that ultimately is responsible?
Yes, good question, they would. But they need to pay the families first. Malaysia Air needs to come out right now and say, look, the families can be assured of one thing. Don't worry, we will take care of you in the end. Whatever happens, we're going to take care of this. They won't do it, but that's what they should do.
Now, in terms of the family, who's looking out for the family? I mean, Malaysian Airlines has plenty of lawyers. Who do the families go to in this instance after the grieving is over? By the way, they're still in the process of that now.
They are. And as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, a colleague, lost 2 nephews in this crash. So this one hits home to me personally. But basically, the families need to have experienced international aviation counsel. It's not your typical case. It's very difficult, complicated, complex area of law. They need to consult the right people.
I think we asked this question about Fleet 370, but when you think about as a passenger, for the rest of us who travel on flights every day, we don't think about potential lawsuits. We don't think about what may happen to our flight. We just don't do that. That's not normal. That's not what we do. Could this potential situation impact our everyday lives in terms of flying in the future?
You know, you would think yes, but my bet is no, because people just go on. This will be old news in a couple of weeks and we'll just go on. You and I board flights all the time. I've sued almost every aircraft manufacturer of every type known flying out there, and I get on their planes. You just go on with life.
Okay, well, it's just a terrible situation to discuss because we're still dealing with what's going to happen to these families as well.
Sure is.
Floyd Wisner, aviation attorney with the Wisner Law Firm, thank you for giving us your insights as to at least the legal framework of this potential case, live from Chicago.